Well, what do we have here? Brand new disc blades. It turned into a little bit of a fiasco to get these damn things. I thought that I had chose, because Sloan uses FedEx, which FedEx is worse than UPS, but either way, I thought I had chose FedEx Ground, because they looked like they had 3 options. And Shoop, if they shipped these things, you would have got like 6 boxes with like 10 disc blades in them apiece from UPS. Well, apparently I picked FedEx Freight. So they called me. They were supposed to be here yesterday, but they were going to be between 10 and 4, which is why can't they be more specific than that? Well, I was going to be at work, so I called Dad, and we got it set up to where we're supposed to go to the dock. It's a place Dad's doing contract work. Well, then never showed up, so Dad called him back, and it wasn't actually supposed to be here yesterday. It's going to be here Monday. Well, they showed up down at the freight dock yesterday, so Dad actually went down to the dock and just picked her up right at the dock. So needless to say, they're here now, but it was a little bit of a fiasco to get them. Unfortunately, the part that I was not too happy about, although I kind of expected it when I saw the price, is that these damn things are made in India. Which I kind of expected, but if I'd have got the ones from Shoop, they're North American. I'm guessing they're Osmondsons. But, yeah. Unfortunately, Shoop could not tell me when they were going to get their blades in, and I kind of needed them sooner than that, and I didn't want to wait 2 more weeks to turn around and have them to tell me, oh, well, now they're going to be 2 more weeks. Next thing you know, we're into April, and we're going to be wanting to get out and do some discing, so here we are putting Indian blades on it. I'm not happy about it, but it is what it is. The only upside is these were cheap enough that I was going to get all 18s if I went through Shoop, and through Sloan, 20s were the same price as 18s, so I went and I got 54 20s, and for the feathering discs, I got 4 16s to put on the outside gangs to use for feathering discs. So anyway, I guess we can go get the cylinder on the disc and get that ready to bring down here. I gotta go pick up some bolts. I ordered all new carriage bolts for the blade scrapers and the bearing flanges. So I got new bolts, I got new flat washers, I got new lock washers, got new nuts, and I got 8 new nuts for the gang bolts that I gotta go pick up here in about an hour. So anyway, pitter patter, let's get at her. Well, you're about to see this disc move for the first time in, shit, I think 4 years. Last time we used it, it was in a video. I had picked up 4 acres of ground, and I went down and chiseled it, and it didn't work up that great, so I had Dad take this in the 1800 down there, and that's the field where the bearings went out. I know this gang, all the bearings are out. Can't remember if there's any other ones, but regardless, all the bearings on it are junk. The blades leave a lot to be desired. It's its time. The cool part about this disc is, unlike most implements, we know its whole history because it spent its entire life on the Morley farm. It was not bought new with the 1800. When Max bought the 1800, he bought that in a 565 5-bottom plow. But this came not too long after, and Morley's have pictures of the 1800 pulling this disc brand new with a 12-foot, or no, it was a 13-foot, 12 or 13-foot Brilliant single row packer behind it. I'll have to see if I can get one of them pictures from him and scan it. See if I can figure out how to scan it, and I'll put it on the end of this video so you can see the 1800 brand new pulling this disc. But anyway, give her a few more R's. Gotta love a closed center system. There we go. This is the first time filling that cylinder with oil, so let the 16 sit a little while, let the air percolate out of the system, and you have to refill it with oil. Level this thing out a bit. Get her up to the house. Okay, now the first thing we're gonna have to do is I just need to get a gang off so we can get it apart and see what we got to do to make these new blades fit, because the holes in them are different, and you'll see what I'm talking about here when we get it off the disc and get it all apart. So I'm gonna go ahead. Luckily these bolts look like they're in fairly decent shape, so hopefully they'll just spin off, and we'll see you in the shop with a tore apart gang. Well, all in all, that didn't come apart too bad. Although the Milwaukee didn't want to touch the nut, had to break out the big boy. But that being said, so here is the predicament we're in. You get into notched disc blades. I cannot find round hole notched disc blades. They're all squares. And you get into a 20, which technically this disc, if you wanted to, the frame is made, you can go all the way up to a 22, but that seems obnoxious, and those are getting kind of salty. So a 20, the smallest hole size you can get is a double punch. They're double square punched for 1.25" or 1.125" square axles. Obviously this is not a square axle, so what we're gonna have to do is, I got some 1.125" flat washers, which the shitty part is, an 1.125" flat washer, the center hole is punched out 1.25" for some damn reason. You'd think that it went 1.16", so it's 1/16 over. But you hold these up to the hole in the old blades, and they're damn near the same size. Apparently the old blades are punched, well, they're probably punched 1/16", but anyway, a round hole that's a little oversized is better than a double square hole that's a lot oversized. So what we're gonna have to do is take these flat washers, and on every one of these blades tack weld a flat washer to the center of the blade so that we have a round hole to go to. So what I got to do is make up a jig that will help me center the washer in the center of the blade so that they're not all walking around. So that's step 2. Well, this is what I came up with. I just took a piece of 2-inch round and chucked it in the lathe and turned a couple pilot diameters on it. And what that's going to allow me to do is I can set that like that, and then take the blade and set it on there like that, and then take my washer, set it on there like that, and obviously don't have to weld all the way around it, but yeah, basically weld it in there like that. I also just want to point out that the finish on these India blades is garbage. Like, this is brand new steel and it's all pitted to hell, and there's just fucking garbage. I wish Shoot would have had my blades. But what can you do? Thanks a lot, China Virus. Damn it. Well, I think we're ready to rock and roll. I went through and ground the paint off all 54 of the big ones. Haven't touched the small ones yet because I have to make a different tool because that hole's smaller. If I make a tool at all, because that fits the... I haven't decided if I'm going to leave those or put welded washer on them yet. I got washers to do them just in case, but we'll see when I make it that far because that's going to go on the wings. But anyway... Well, all the welding's done. Normally, I'd say you don't want to go welding on a disc blade like this, but A, they didn't leave us much choice, and B, the clamping force of the spools is going to take 90% of the shock load on these things. Basically, all that washer's got to do is help keep the blade centered on the axle so that they don't start walking. And as long as you keep the gang bolt tight, there's not going to be a whole lot of stress here, and then the spool is going to be clear out here, so your stress point's going to be clear out here where it's trying to flex against the edge of the spool, so shouldn't have any issues with what we did there, and that's why I didn't weld all the way around it, because you don't want to create a big stress point there. So anyway, I guess we'll throw our first gang together and see how it goes. We actually know a guy that worked at the Oliver factory at South Bend, and one of his jobs when he was down there was assembling disc gangs. And he said when they did this, they had a bunch of big spools in the floor, and basically as you stacked the gang, it would sink down in the floor so that you're always working here at standing height. And then when you got the gang done, you'd hit a button and it'd pull the gear. Actually, no, they didn't hit a button. They'd hook onto it with a crane and pull the entire assembly back out, so they never had to handle the whole gang by hand. Neat little tidbit for you. Get a couple blades on here, and I can do it laying down, but until I can get a couple blades on it, you gotta do it standing up. before I put that last, before I put the end cap on, take a wire brush and clean them threads up. Put the end cap on this and hit a slight problem. All of the spools obviously have recesses in them to clear the concavity of the disc blade. The end cap is flat, so it hits that washer I welded on there. So what we're gonna have to do is come in here and make some clearance so it'll clear that washer and actually hit the disc blade, not the washer. So. And there's one gang done. The other three will go real quick now that I got all the hard part out, or the hard part out of the way and know what to do. The only thing I'll have to do is gouge out the other 3 end caps. But I made 8 new lock plates. Obviously 4 for the wings. I got brand new nuts for all of them. So I guess go ahead and get the other 3 taken off the disc. I'm not going to put them back on right away because I want to get all the blade scrapers off, so I'm not fighting them putting the gangs back on. And I got all new bolts for the scrapers too, so I can get those adjusted to where they're actually working. So I guess get the other 3 gangs off the disc and get it put away. It'll be out of daylight by the time I get done doing that, and hopefully get at least all the gangs, get new blades on all the gangs today, and then get it back together tomorrow. So go from there. Tell you what, it is really damn nice outside like right now. If it wasn't for the slight breeze that we got, you wouldn't even need a coat. But I guess I should explain their whole reasoning that I wanted to go notch blades on this thing instead of, because I think I could have got 20-inch round or 18 or 20-inch round blades with round holes in them that would have fit these that had 1 1/8 round holes in them. I think. I didn't look. But regardless, the whole reason I wanted to go with notched blades is because every time I was down there disking the muck, I had the same issue that you'd be going along, and if you weren't paying attention, you'd have a gang stop because that muck ground almost has no resistance to it whatsoever to keep them gangs turning. They just turn by sheer luck, and you'd be going along, and all of a sudden you're pulling harder than hell, and you look back and you got a gang stop and you got a big old ball of corn stalks in front of it that you got to try to disc back down now. So my hopes are, by going to a notched blade, they'll actually bite in and stay turning, rather than stopping and getting balled up, and the next thing you know you got corn stalk plug piles all over the place you got to try to get rid of. And the other reason is, the only 2 things that this thing is going to get used for is disking the muck, because disc is really the only option you got for a tillage tool on muck. And it's going to get used for buffing down bean stubble so I can plant wheat. So obviously if you're going to be doing primary tillage with it and chopping residue, that's what notch blades are for to begin with, is for size and residue, so that was my whole reason for going all notch anyway. Plus, you get a little bit better ground penetration on a lighter disc because you don't have as much initial surface contact area because you only got that much going in the ground at one time. But the big reason was for the muck anyway. It's kind of scary how easy these bolts are coming out. I'm hoping that means I'll get lucky and all the bolts will come out of the scraper if I don't gotta torch them off, because that's gonna be a lot of torching. I'll probably have to torch the wings because the wings came off of a different disc and they're rough, but at least if I can get them all to spin off of here. Sucks about working on a disc is every time you go to break a bolt loose, you look at it and go, man, am I going to slice myself open when this thing breaks loose? Come on. Last bolt's always got to be a bugger. And 3 more to go. Or 2 more to go. Well, that looks weird. This is the gang that that end bearing is out. And something else is screwed up in here too, because I remember now doing this. Something's funky. We had to add that extra spacer, but everything's there because it's got a spacer, a bearing, a spacer, spool, spacer, bearing, spacer, spool, spacer, bearing, spacer, and everything's right. And then this one is spacer, bearing, spacer, spool, spacer, bearing, spacer, spool, spacer, bearing, spacer. So they're right. And then I noticed that this one has a couple washers crammed on there, but it's not nearly, I don't know if it's just because the bearings were out or what, but hopefully that gang doesn't become a problem child and we can get all that menagerie of shit off the end. Although it does look like, well, maybe not. It does kind of look like that last disc isn't spaced out. No, I guess it's the same. Anyway, we'll figure it out when we get it apart, but get all 3 of them in the garage. We can get them apart. And take the disc up and park it. You can't really call it a disc no more. It ain't got a disc. Take the frame up and park it. And we'll check the oil in the 1600. Since we filled that cylinder, I see no leaky under the cylinder, so we must have took care of that problem. And we'll go from there. So obviously you guys know what it takes to rebuild a disc gang now, so I guess I'm going to go ahead and get all these things tore apart, get all my stuff taken care of, get all these things tore apart, get all of them put back together, and we will catch you guys when I get done with all that. That's going to be real nice, Clark. Not gonna lie, as much as I hate discs as a tillage tool, I'm kind of excited to finally have a decent disc to use when the time arises that I do need it, like disc and muck. I'm not even gonna. This is gonna look nice. It's gonna look real nice. But they were definitely driving on a flat tire. I could hear it thumping. This is the best part though. This disc is going to take, when it's all said and done, 56 blades. It's going to be 10 on each main gang, so 40. And then 4 on each wing, so 16 more, 56. With the feathering discs, that's 52 20s. They sent me 48. Ugh. How hard is it to count? You're literally a warehouse worker. That's your job all day, is to count. Unless it's that Common Core math bullshit they're teaching these days. But anyway, I'm gonna have to call them Monday and figure out what the hell is going on. It said they had 60 and some change in stock. So hopefully that doesn't mean that their system was wrong and they only had 48 in stock and I'm back to square one waiting on disc blades. Hopefully they can just drop ship them to me and get them here. Luckily, the wings aren't ready to go yet. That's gonna, well, technically they are, because they're already all apart. Basically, all I gotta do is mount them on the desk and then put the gangs together, but I don't know. If it wasn't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all, I tell you what. But anyway, yeah, I guess with that being said, I'm going to get these things outside so Dad can have his garage slot back, and I'm going to clean up my mess because I made a hell of a mess. And, oh, before I forget, that gang that had the spacer on it and all the junk on the end of it and was the axle was way too long and everything was all crunched up. That is because all 6 of the half spools that clamp the bearings were ate up. They're all somewhere between, over all of them, they're all somewhere between 1/4 and 1/8 inch short. So you add all that up, over all 6 of them, you lost like 1.5 inches, 2 inches of material with what's ate off of all of them. So that explains why that one gang was so screwed up. Luckily, my very first disc I ever had when I started farming was I had a 14-foot 241 that I got for free because the guy that used to own the Oliver dealer in town, who he also farmed, and when I was a little kid, I went over and worked his garden for him, and he gave me that disc because I wanted it for some reason. When I say this disc was tired, I mean, it was clapped. She had lived a very full and productive life, to say the least. The frame had been bent or broken, welded multiple times. The blades were shot and half broken, and all the bearings were So first thing I did was I pulled all the wings off of it because it was a 10-foot base with 2-foot wings. And I pulled it with my 66 for a while. And then I got my 1955, put the wings back on it. Well, the first time I pulled it with my 1955, I had enough horse in front of it that I smoked all the bearings. So basically that was the end of that. And my 10-foot 252 that I got came from, or I found that for $500, and it had all all good blades on it, but the bearings were shot. So basically what I did was I scrapped the 241, put new bearings on my 252, the 10-footer that I got, and that's where we sit. When I scrapped the 241, luckily, all I did was I cut the bolts off that hold the gangs and the gang frames and so basically all I scrapped was the main frame and the tongue. I kept the axles, I kept the gangs, I kept everything else that bolts on the frame for spare parts, because that's all the same as a 252, or well, 250 series in general. So that's where my wings are coming from. Luckily, that's where all my replacement spools that I used to put that gang back together, I had all those on hand. So it was lucky that I did that. But that's where we're at. So I guess we'll catch you guys tomorrow when hopefully we get the disc itself all slapped back together. Because all I got to do is hopefully all the bolts come apart okay on the scrapers. Get all the scrapers off, bolt the gangs back on, bolt all the scrapers back on, get them adjusted, and kind of give the disc itself a good once over. I noticed the wheel bearings are kind of sloppy, so I'm probably going to just tighten those up for now, and I'll run it for a season, and next year I'll put new wheel bearings in it. And other than that, just kind of give it a good once over and check and make sure there's no cracks, nothing's loose. And then she'll be all ready. And then later in the week, we'll work on getting the wings bolted on and getting the wings all together. And hopefully I come up with 4 more damn blades, because that kind of pisses me off. So anyway, I guess we'll catch you guys tomorrow. Well, here we are. Get the morning Mountain Dew in. And I think we're ready to build a disc today. Gotta get all the scrapers off first. Luckily, the bolts are all 1-inchers, so there's not a whole lot of thread sticking out past the nut, so hopefully I can just spin them all off with an impact. And like I say, I got brand new bolts for all of them. But you got to keep track of what's what, because there are rights and lefts and there are fronts and backs. So basically, you take them off a gang, you're better off just to pile them all up behind the gang, put them all right back on. And I do notice that some of them are wore a little more than others, so might end up the gangs off that 241 have scrapers on them. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember if I took them off or not. Pretty sure they do, but if they do, we'll take the better ones off of the 241 frame and put on here so that they're all full length. Because I don't think I'm going to call AGCO up and say, hey, I need some new blade scrapers for a 252 disc. But anyway, I guess get the impact out, see if we can't bust some of these nuts loose, and get it ready to slap the axles back on, eh? Peter pup. What you doing? You like it now that it's warm outside and you could actually stay out and not have your little toes freezing off? Now that it's decent out, before she'd go outside, she'd do her business, and then she'd come right back to North, start whining. Now you gotta call her for 10 minutes before she comes in because she wants to stay outside and play. Don't you, girl? That's dirt. Don't eat dirt. Goofball. Well, there's some good news. That's what I get for saying hopefully. The damn squares are spinning in the slots and the scrapers, so guess we gotta get the torch out. That's a lot of bolts to torch off. I might try our heater real quick just to see, just because I'm curious. I don't have very high hopes for this working, because if the squares are already wore off or rotted off, they ain't gonna hold anyhow. But if I got a fighting chance of not having to run the torch for that long, I'm gonna take it. Well, damn. I guess we're running the torch for that long. Well, that actually went better than I thought. That new tank of acetylene I put on the torch a few days ago must have done the trick, 'cause I was having trouble getting it to heat when I was working on the field cultivator. But anyway, I guess with that, we're ready to put the gangs back on. And before anybody says anything about it, because I'm sure somebody's, at least one person's going to notice that I didn't bend the locking tabs over on the axle nuts, because I want to run this thing over 4 or 5 acres, let the gangs stretch or do whatever they're going to do, and then tighten them down again and then lock them. That way you're not bending and rebending the tab and breaking it. So there's a reason to it. Just so nobody says, hey, you forgot to bend them tabs over. No, I didn't. I did it on purpose. It looks so sad without any blades on it. I think we're about to change that. Okay, so everything's looking pretty good, except that one's good, that one's good, that one's bent. That bearing mount is, you can see right here, it's int. So we're gonna want to take that off and get it straightened out, because you don't want to be pulling on the bearing like that when you tighten the bolts up, because that's gonna greatly reduce the life of your bearing. So I'll pop that bad boy off real quick, take it down in the press, straighten it out, and we should be good. Well, there's one gang done. I cannot explain it for the life of me, but that end bearing mount, I got it off, laid it on the bench. It was flat. It was puckered a little bit, so I did take it down, and I did flatten it out a little bit in the press, but put it back on where it was, and it was still way off. Flipped it around to the other side of here. Damn thing lined up perfect. So I went with it. Don't know why, but whatever works. As long as everything fits like it's supposed to. So I guess just gotta do that 3 more times. Now that is how you bring some life back into a tired old disc. Man, that looks good. I'm kind of excited. I kind of want to go start working ground. It's a little wet, but I kind of want to. It's a lot wet, but I still kind of want to. But anyway, now that all the axles are back on, and, you know, I don't know what's different about them, but that gang and that gang, I had to flip on both of them. The end bearing mount, I had to flip around to the other side of the bracket. Don't know why, don't know what's different about those 2 axles, but sure as shit, something's different about them. But no big deal, everything fits. We're not putting any unnecessary tension on the bearings, so send it. But anyway, now I got 40 blade scrapers to put back on. Well, there's all the scrapers back on. I know I did say that I was going to take the shorties off and replace them, but when we were doing everything else on it, I was thinking about it. I'm like, you know, if they got enough adjustment in them, even if they're short, if they got enough adjustment in them to run them up against the blade and get more use out of them, it ain't like you can go buy them new anymore, so I might as well burn them up and get all the use out of them I can before I replace them. So that's what we're going to do. And I know I said I was going to do the wheel bearings, or tighten the wheel bearings, but since we're on a roll here and I got all the tools drug out and the forklift's out and it's really nice outside, I think I'm going to go ahead and bring those 241 parts down, and we're going to get the wings off and at least get the wing frames transferred over to this thing. So I'm going to go grab the pallet. Hopefully it makes it down here. It was looking pretty rough when I pulled it out of the boneyard. So anyway, next step. And here's what's left of a poor old 241. Somewhere on here's enough parts to put wings on that thing. Got the axle that is, I'm gonna haul to scrap when I get all this tillage work project done, because I cut the spindles off of it, because my original intent before that 12-footer got here was I was gonna put the wings on my 10-footer and make that 14-foot, and I was gonna put dual transport wheels on it. So I needed the spindles and everything out of this, so I cut the spindles and hubs out. And those are down in the barn, but the axle's junk because there's obviously no spindles left in it. Got axles, got spools, got the U-bolt, or got the U's that hold the axle to the frame. Here's the short axles for the, or 2 of the short axles for the wings. Hopefully, yeah, the other 2. I tore 2 gangs apart because they had bigger blades. And I put those blades on the rear gang on my 10-footer. So that's why some of these are tore apart. Hopefully I still got all the parts. I ought to, between those axles and these. So I gotta get all this shit unstacked so we can take inventory of what we got and unbolt the wings. Which it's just 4 bolts a piece and they're new bolts. So should go pretty easy, and take the wings and slap them on there. And should be good. So I'm gonna get all this unstacked and we'll go from there. And everybody always asks me, hey, where do you find all the parts to keep that old stuff going? Well, you see, the secret is you gotta hoard all the stuff that everybody else considers junk, because eventually that junk is gonna become useful shit. Like these guys. Cute little 2-foot wings that are gonna fit that disc right there. But what I'm gonna do is, first off, so that I don't skewer myself trying to put these damn things together, I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna torch all the blade scrapers off of this one. And I'm gonna torch the blade scrapers off of that one. And I'm going to, that one's got one monster ass square nut. I'm going to go ahead and just torch the nuts off of these things, because I ain't gonna fight them, because I remember how bad it was when I took those 2 apart many moons ago. So you just go in and you're really careful. You just start scalping it off till you can get into the chisel and bust the nut. And I'm probably gonna go ahead and just take the main gangs apart too. That way they stack nicer and I could scrap the blades, because the blades are junk. This is the kind of shape this disc was in. It was just... And I'm pretty sure that axle right there is off of an 8-footer. That's definitely not a 10-foot axle, because there should be a blade here and there should be a blade here. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so there should just be one more blade. But either way, pretty sure that's an 8-foot axle. So yeah. I guess get to hacking and whacking and get all this shit apart. Holy shit, that was a lot of cutting. I got stuff scattered everywhere, don't I, girl? Ooh, big stretch. She just woke up from a nap. But I got all of the wings unbolted from the gangs. I got all the axles cut off. I got almost all. I didn't bother cutting the bearings off the main gangs, because ain't no sense in it. But I mean, if I really wanted to build a disc, I could take the main gangs and use those for wings and have a 22-foot disc. But I don't think that frame would appreciate that. I don't think my ass lifting those things by hand would appreciate that. But I think 16 foot's gonna be plenty for what I want to do. But anyway, I am going, oh, I got all the wing axles came out all right. The threads on them are halfway decent. Might see if Dad's got a die so I could chase him. That one's a little buggered up, but I think they'll hold a nut. This guy has me worried, because that end cap has turned in the key. What you doing, Pop? What you doing, Pop? The key, which is supposed to be in the slot, as Teeter is pointing out, is now right here, and I can't get that cap off. So if I can't get it off without hurting, I'm gonna try to get it off without hurting anything, even if I gotta cut this somehow. I don't know how the hell I'm gonna do it if I have to, but I might have to torch the blade off. Yeah. I don't know. I'll figure something out. But anyway, if I can't get this off without saving the axle, should, in theory, be able to cut one of the long ones down and thread it and cut a keyway in it and use one of the long ones. But we shall see. But anyway, I'm going to get all my shit cleaned up and get a pallet and get all this stuff stacked back on a pallet and get it out of the way. Back the disc back up here on the concrete, and we're gonna get the wings put on. So much slag. That was a lot of cutting. It took me probably started at about 2:30 and it's 4 o'clock, and I said it took me an hour and a half of cutting to get all that stuff apart. That was a lot of cutting. Holy shit. Alrighty, time to get the wings on. They got these spacers, and then they use these 2 bolt holes. So yeah, it's kind of fun getting the crap lined up, but tis what it is. The easiest thing to do would be to put the plates on and put these on, but it's still, with one person, this is probably still easier. I gotta remember. Oops. That way. Where's the hole? Time I put these back on a disc, they still had blades on them, and that was a chore because they weighed 1,000 pounds and you're trying to manhandle the damn things. So you can only do so much with a forklift before you gotta jostle it around by hand. Ron helped me with that ordeal. That was a long time ago. That was back when he and Matt and I were still farming. That was actually the first year we farmed together, because we put the wings back on it, and then we went down and tried to disc stalks with it, and that's when I took the bearings out. And then after that, I spent the rest of the time pulling Matt's dad's Alice 2600 18-footer. That was a nice disc. I like that disc. Something about like that. And needing a tool. anybody else ever pull out their cordless impact? Actually, his dad's cordless impact. Mine's at my house. But anybody else ever pull out a cordless impact and look at it and think, my God, how did we ever get by without these damn things? These and the cordless little zip guns. Those things are like lifesavers. But do that 4 more times. What you think? Cheater. What you think? Well, that job's done. Well, that part's done. That job's not done. Job's still got a ways to go yet, but the wings are on anyhow. Tell you what, in today's world, 16-foot disc doesn't sound like a whole lot. But when you're used to pulling a 10-foot and you add another 6 foot onto it, this thing seems freaking huge. I'm not going to know what to do with this. Like I say, as much as I hate discs, I'm kind of excited. Well, I hate discs as a tillage tool. I love discing. It's probably my second favorite thing to do besides moldboard plowing. But that's a topic for another time. Anyway. So a few things I'm going to have to do yet. There's bushings on these bolts for the wing pivots. And most of them are shot. So I'm going to have to remake those. There are pins that go in these holes here. These guys. Those guys are there. Actually, not that. That's a different thing. I know what that's for. These pins right here. Those have seen better days, and a couple of them are homemade. So, actually, this one, I made that one. But I'm probably going to make new ones of those. I'll probably keep that one since I made that one, but... So, I need to get those. There's supposed to be counterbalance springs on these things that hook on here somehow and go down to there somehow. I'd have to look in the book and see exactly how they work, but they're supposed to help you be able to over center that wing when it's got blades on it, because it's kind of hard. So obviously I don't have those. Those have been long gone for a while. So I'm gonna have to try to find some of those. If I don't find them, it's not a huge deal. You can get them over. You just got to work for it. Getting them unfolded is harder than getting them folded. But, so I need to do that. There is supposed to be, that goes between here and here, an angle iron strut that goes and lays across these gangs to help hold them level, keep them from twisting when you're pulling it. Gonna have to make those because obviously those are missing, and that's what these pins are for, right here. Those just drop in there like that and hold that angle iron. So gonna have to make those. And then the other thing gonna have to do so that I can pull this thing with duals on the 55 is need to add about 2 foot onto the tongue, because the tongue's too short to pull this thing with duals. When you cut a corner hard, you rub the frame. So need to figure out a way to just make a sleeve and use that bolt. Probably use that bolt and just make an extra 2 foot to add onto the tongue and use that same hitch clevis. That way, if you ever want to not have 2 foot of extra tongue on there, you can just take the extension off and put it back where it belongs. And then obviously you need to figure out how to get this damn gang, or get this axle apart, which is going to be a project for another day because I'm just about had it. Hopefully that axle's not super screwed up past that nut, because there's enough good thread out here that even if it's a little messed up back here, it'll still tighten up fine. Otherwise, like I say, we'll have to take one of them other axles, take one of the long axles, cut it down and make one of those. And obviously tomorrow I have to call Sloan and figure out where the hell my extra 4 blades are. So we'll see how well they handle this as to how, if I ever do business with them again, because if they don't, if they decide that they need to charge me for that freight and all that crap to get those extra 4 blades to me, probably not going to do business with them again. Because Shoop had an order get screwed up on me, and all they did was drop shipped it to me, and they ate the freight and the extra parts and the whole 9 yards. Of course, that wasn't their fault. UPS dropped the box and reboxed it and lost a bunch of shit out of the box, so that wasn't Shoop's fault anyway. But yeah, I did not get a chance to talk to Morley about them pictures. Hopefully I will have those in time for the final video on this project, because I think we can get this done in 2 and go from there. So I guess that's enough talking. This video is going to be long as hell as it is, so that's it for this one, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Right, girl?